From crown escape to money mystery, the Sussex story that began as a liberation tale is now under a numbers-driven glare. And the question at the heart of it could redefine a modern royal saga. Where does the money really come from? California's sun still shines, but the mood around Harry and Meghan has shifted. What started as a bold break from royal life now wears the weight of doubt. They were painted by supporters as architects of their own fate, steering toward a new chapter on their own terms. The promise was simple: shed the palace's endless scrutiny, fund a fresh life with their own hustle. Yet what seemed like a clear path has grown tangled. Instead of admiration, the conversation is crowded with questions that won't quiet down. The early framing claimed a clean separation from royal funding. No Duchy of Cornwall handouts, no secret allowances, no hidden checks. Just grit, talent, opportunity. But as the months rolled by, the visible side of the story began to clash with that narrative. A Monaceto mansion emerged, security costs climbed into the millions, fleets of luxury cars appeared, and wardrobes screamed abundance. The supposed starting fresh image rings hollow in the glare of real receipts. Whispers among their circle and among potential backers grew louder. Who's really paying for this? Hollywood executives who once rushed to back the Sussex dream started backing away in private. Spotify stepped back publicly. Netflix's enthusiasm cooled to a murmur. Meghan's flagship projects kept stalling before they reached audiences. The optimism that fueled the early partnerships began to look like hype without ballast. Harry's memoir did make a splash, there's no denying that. But one book isn't a long-term financial engine capable of underwriting jets, gates, and forever security. The big money contracts that were meant to steady the ship appear shakier by the day. The unsettling thought surfaces. Could there be another, less transparent source underwriting the Sussex enterprise? The whispers gain weight the moment grand plans hinge on a few blockbuster deals. And then there's the money trail itself. Financial trackers don't chase gossip. They chase patterns. Offshore accounts, unusual transfers, shadowy donations, signposts that can't be dismissed as mere rumor when they echo through big charitable platforms. When philanthropy and high finance intersect, the stakes become not just reputational, but potentially legal. The irony thickens around Meghan's brand. She was marketed as a global force, someone who could blend royal influence with Hollywood savvy and drive cultural projects forward. Yet the outcomes haven't matched the hype. The chorus now centers on oversell, promises that outpace delivery, and projects that struggled to land. The image of a polished icon begins to lose its shine, replaced by a narrative of drama more than impact. For Harry, insiders describe him as combative, restless, and increasingly aware that independence can feel like a gilded cage. Friends say he can snap under pressure, uneasy with a spotlight that's louder than ever. The man who aimed to shield his family from British tabloids now stars in a saga that's bigger than any tabloid script. The storytellers aren't journalists or commentators this time. They're investigators, accountants, and government officials who don't care about titles or interviews. And through it all sits the palace's quiet posture. William, known for his composure, is reportedly finished with the circus. Each California headline, every whisper of federal eyes on his brother drags at the monarchy's reputation. He doesn't need to speak to send a message. The widening rift between the brothers says enough. Reconciliation feels distant. Fatigue and even disdain seem to be the prevailing notes. The glamour that once drew crowds now invites questions. The brand built on openness and authenticity is being tested by a silence that feels heavier with every passing day. When money questions loom, the usual transparency evaporates, and the witnesses grow louder in their insistence on real answers. This isn't mere gossip anymore. The whispers aren't fading, they're multiplying. The world isn't laughing at tabloid chatter, it's pressing for a clear explanation. Where does the money really come from? At the center of the storm is a lifestyle that looks incongruent with the underdogs who walked away image. On paper, they presented themselves as self-made outsiders. In practice, their lives radiate the signals of a cosmopolitan family with resources that seem at odds with the backstory. The Monaceto estate signals tens of millions in value, a procession of high-end cars, wardrobes chosen for public visibility, and vacations that scream abundance. These aren't the symbols of a fresh start, but of a life lived beyond the stated budget. LA executives who once lined up to align with Meghan's brand now shift in their seats. When she burst onto the scene, she was positioned as the next great cultural force, someone who could attract partners, lend histrionic gravitas to projects, and merge royal aura with Hollywood energy. But the results have lagged behind the rhetoric. Rumors swirl about documentaries that fizzled, partnerships that stalled, and pitches that felt more like ambition than substance. Instead of a defining icon, she's become a headline whose drama sometimes overshadows deals. Harry isn't spared the scrutiny either. His memoir sparked a global conversation, but the glow didn't sustain a long-term career plan. Critics argue he hasn't found a lane that keeps him relevant beyond the grievances that framed his departure. The old narrative, break free from the monarchy, was powerful, but without a palace to push against, the storyline risks losing its momentum. Friends describe him as tempered, restless, and keenly aware that independence can become a demand that weighs on him. The fiscal questions carry serious weight. Investigators don't show up without reason. The presence of offshore accounts, shell donations, and unusual transfers signals that something larger could be at play. When these patterns touch charitable causes, the stakes soar. Philanthropy, once a shield, could become a vulnerability if it's masking financial maneuvers. Meanwhile, the palace's restraint sharpens the spotlight. William's quiet stance reads as a strategic choice, a reminder that monarchy relies on stability and discretion. Each headline about probes or wealth questions chips away at that image. In royal circles, Harry's choices are increasingly seen as potential gambits rather than brave leaps. Hollywood isn't the sanctuary it once seemed. Executives are practical. Controversy sells, but only if it's profitable and sustainable. Meghan's projects are losing some luster, and the appetite for Harry's personal grievances appears to be waning. Deals that once looked bright now show warning signs of underperformance. Without blockbuster results, the dynamic risks shifting from valuable asset to financial liability. As the questions grow louder, one truth becomes unavoidable. Sympathy has an expiration date. The global audience that once rallied behind their independence wants concrete receipts, clear explanations, and numbers that add up. The longer those details stay hidden, the harsher the spotlight grows. The irony lands with sharper edge than before. The couple who sought to outrun scrutiny now live under a magnifying glass more intense than any tabloid could conjure. The new watchers, the investigators, have the power to turn whispers into formal scrutiny. The core question remains: how do they fund it all? The public image leans toward independence, but the ledger doesn't align. Book royalties, speaking fees, and a handful of media deals can't fully cover the ongoing costs of private security, a sprawling estate, and non-stop transatlantic travel. When costs outpace visible income, questions crowd in, and the stakes escalate toward audits, penalties, or charges that could alter a royal legacy. Public sentiment mirrors the intrigue. Dinner table debates and workplace chatter orbit the same central doubt. Something crucial is missing. Supporters who once championed fearless new paths hesitate. Sympathy fades when the narrative hints at exploiting trust. Without the goodwill that framed their journey, victimhood loses its sheen. Behind closed doors, tension surfaces, the tempers flare, the control over the narrative strains, and the camera stops obeying a script. No Netflix series or memoir can spin this away if investigators uncover truths too carefully hidden. So, what comes next? If they can demonstrate that their wealth is transparent, lawful, and earned, there's still a path to rebuild trust. If whispers sharpen into hard evidence, the empire could crack, and the same spotlight that celebrated their escape could reveal the seams in the story. The bottom line remains stark. The couple who sought to outrun the palace might instead find themselves under a scrutiny that makes royal headlines look tame. And the unspoken question still lingers: where does the money come from?